All right, everybody, joining me next, and welcome back into Talking SEC. Joining me next is Jay Stevens. You can check him out over on Locked On Buckeyes and the Jay Stevens podcast, which I have been on a couple of times. I know some of you are probably wondering, Phillip, this is a predominantly SEC show. You talk about football in the South. Why in the world would you have the host of Locked On Buckeyes? Number one, Jay is awesome. He knows all things college football. That's number one. Number two, let's come on. They just played Michigan. There's a chance Ohio State gets back into the playoff picture. They are ranked fifth right now in the new rankings. We'll get into that in a little bit. So an SEC team is probably could be playing Ohio State, and we could have a discussion on an SEC team versus Ohio State. That's why Jay Stevens is on. Jay, I appreciate you coming on and talking a little ball today.
Phillip, your listeners will be wondering exactly what you just stated. A guy who covers a team in the Midwest, why are you having him talk about a Midwestern football team when this is a podcast about predominantly stuff in the South? There's one school in the Midwest that's deserving to be in this conversation and that can consistently compete and beat teams in the Southeastern Conference. It is the Ohio State Buckeyes. Some of you might say, Jay, why are you coming in hot with that take? I only speak the truth, which is why those words came out of my mouth.
I thought you were going to say Michigan was the team that could compete with the SEC. I'm sorry. I had to do it. I had to do it.
That hurt.
Oh, man, it's all good fun. I just had to do it since what happened with the two teams. But, yeah, anyways, I'm glad to have you on. And actually, everybody, I'm going to do this little favor for you. After you get done watching or listening to this, go find the Locked On College Football Rankings Recap. Jay is on there. So, go do that, and also go check out his other podcast too as well. So this is not the first time we're recording this Tuesday evening that Jay is breaking down the college football rankings, but I got to leave with this. All off season, ever since last year when Ohio State lost to Michigan, all we heard about, Jay, was how Ohio State was going to get their revenge. They had them at home. I even saw a thing where was Ohio State actually wearing what looked like Michigan helmets almost in practice. Everything was built up. All we heard, Ohio State's going to do this to Michigan. Michigan wins 45-23. Game, that score can be misleading if you look at it a certain way, but I just got to ask, what happened?
It's easy. And when I use this word to describe what happened, you're going to say, Jay, how does that go with what Phillip just said? You'll quickly understand. I would like to say the Buckeyes got bullied against the Wolverines of Michigan. It is not so much bullied physically, but they got out-coached in a way that the Ohio State coaches would not get out of their own way. And the Michigan coaches were 2 or 3 or 4 steps ahead of Ryan Day, of Jim Knowles, of Kevin Wilson, of Brian Hartline. And they got bullied mentally, because a mental battle is getting out of your own way. That's not something these coaches normally do. Being better prepared for the game. There's been times that this coaching staff has not properly prepared the players for the game that they're about to play. So it's not so much getting bullied physically, Phillip, as in the game. If you watched it, Ohio State's defense was doing okay at times, better than you would think. However, when you're on the field for, I think it was like a 7.5 or 8 minute drive, latter part of the third quarter into the fourth, and then shortly after that, that's when the beat down started to happen on the scoreboard. Yeah, it's a mental battle there where they're bullying you mentally, saying, y'all can't stop us. Or if you're Ohio State's offense that is trying to get some things done, but the coaches aren't calling plays to make things work, you're getting bullied mentally. So it was a mental beatdown. The body language of Ohio State was not good. Credit to the Wolverines. Don't like that school. Never liked that school. Some people say Jim Harbaugh should be the next head coach of the Indianapolis Colts. I'm a fan. He was a quarterback of them in the 90s. I say absolutely not. Keep Harbaugh away from Indianapolis, Indiana. Don't want him here. He's coming here this week. It's where I actually live. He's coming here, him and his team, to play in the Big Ten championship game. I will be there, and I will tell you this. For the first time in my life, I'm rooting for the Purdue Boilermakers, and it makes me weird saying that. All my life, if I root for an Indiana team, it's always Indiana, never Purdue. But here is Purdue. I want them to beat down, not just mentally, but physically, the Wolverines, because I'm still kind of hurt and stung off of what happened this past weekend. Ryan Day didn't do a good job. Jim Knowles didn't do a good job. CJ Stroud did okay, but could not overcome things. The defense, secondary still being a liability, so many issues, which is why I really think next year is more intriguing at this point in the year than I think anybody thought it was going to be, because this isn't one year where Ohio State got blown out by the Wolverines. This is 2 years in a row. Last year, Aiden Hutchinson, a Heisman Trophy finalist. This year, the Heisman Trophy candidate, Blake Corum, didn't play in that game, and the Wolverines' leading rusher still had over 200 yards on the ground. It was bad, embarrassing, and Ohio State is in a fortunate spot to still be in the playoff picture, although on the outside right now, could be on the inside on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, and with this game, Michigan, Ohio State, it just, especially with Blake Corum being where he was health-wise, and I'm watching the game, and I'll watch the game from start to finish. I mean, that was appointment television for me. Yeah, I'm an SEC guy. I was going to watch Ohio State, Michigan, because one, it's just a big impact on the playoff situation. And when Blake Corum, you obviously tell it was not going to be his day. He's hurt. That was not going to be a factor. And then the way Ohio State's offense did move in the first half, I was like, Michigan can't win this game, because this is not a game that is where they're set. They are I don't want to say a slower team, a more grinded out team, defensive team. If this is a track meet, Ohio State's got to beat. The second half, Michigan, and I'm going to say, and you can tell me if I'm talking out of turn here, they physically dominated Ohio State for the second year in a row on the line of scrimmage. And C.J. Stroud made some throws. He had some interceptions, I know, in the second half. I mean, he was trying to do some things. I don't know. And it just seemed like once Michigan got that momentum, Ohio State didn't know how to respond. And I'm going to ask you this question. And I saw, look, nobody likes Dan Wolken. If you do, Jay, I'm sorry, but nobody likes Dan Wolken.
I think Dan Wolken is one of those guys on Twitter that I ended up muting. Didn't block him, but I ended up muting during 2020 because he was just making idiotic and stupid statements. And I still see some of his stuff when I click on it, but no, he's one of those guys in sports that I don't try to listen to or read anything that he writes.
So, and I'm not getting credit to him when I say this. And when I say, okay, so Ryan Day, going into next year, pressure. I'm not going to say hot seat like Dan Wolken did, because, look, I don't think that should be the case. What is the situation if Ohio State does not get into the playoff going into next year? After this, what's the situation?
Very similar to last offseason, where Ryan Day had to fix some things with the coaching staff. But ultimately, I think it's more fixing things with himself. His philosophy, having more comfort with the quarterback, being able to properly prepare a team, and getting them physically ready and mentally prepared for a long, grueling season. Phillip, there was a problem that happened at Ohio State after the bye week. They were rolling, just rocking and rolling at the beginning. Yeah, 21-10 win over Notre Dame. They had a game where they scored 70 points. It was either against Toledo or Arkansas State. But early in the year, you saw DeQuan Finn, quarterback of Toledo. The Buckeyes had an issue with a really dynamic, athletic quarterback who can move the ball and be more of your 10 years ago dual threat quarterback we saw a lot in high school and college. Well, that kind of happened. J.J. McCarthy, not the best. I don't even think J.J. McCarthy's an above average quarterback. He's not an amazing guy, but he was athletic enough. He had a big enough arm to surprise Ohio State. I think it's more Ryan Day internally fixing things via his own preparation, his own coaching style, but also in recruiting. There's a fundamental problem with Ohio State. I won't say recruiting right now. It's heavy. You can get D linemen. You should be able to get running backs. He's had a running back decommit, and I think he committed to Miami, I believe. But outside of receiver, quarterback, occasionally O-line, some D linemen, linebacker and secondary is lacking in the recruiting at Ohio State. Yes, Urban Meyer did a phenomenal job of recruiting. He's a great coach, great recruiter. He's a Hall of Famer. But I think Ryan Day is learning. Offensively, he has a great mind. You got to figure out how to do some different things in the recruiting on defense as well. As good as Denzel Burke is, number 10 for the Buckeyes, he's a small cat. And someone recently told me while watching the Egg Bowl, the cats down south look different. It's actually my girlfriend. When she was watching them play, she sent me a text because we watch Ohio State every week. There's a different look and build to those players in the southeast of the country versus those that are at Ohio State. And some of those players in Ohio State come from the southeastern portion of the country. I just don't know why there's a size and speed element that's on those players that's not on Ohio State's. And I mentioned that quickly. I know I keep going. I talk about Phillip. So there was I think it was Cornelius Johnson, his long touchdown run, catch and run. And I noticed, even the second half when Donovan Edwards had his long run, a 74 or 70 plus yard touchdown run, I said, they're not running fast. Like the Michigan guys are not like track speed, competing to be in the Olympics. They weren't that fast. So you're not only talking about a size that's missing, there's a speed element that's missing. Those are two things Urban Meyer brought to Ohio State and Columbus. I think it's hard. We're finding out it's hard to sustain that with the next coach at Ohio State. So I think it's more internal issues, and Ryan Day could be on the hot seat. I think it's he's getting hot. I don't think it's boiling just yet, but if he doesn't fix things, that seat could be boiling in Columbus when he gets back to his office after every game.
Yeah, and we'll get back to Ohio State because we're going to talk about them a little bit more in the next topic. With Michigan, one of the best defenses in the country. I mean, when you look at what they are, third in points allowed per game at 12.7, second in yards allowed in 62.2, and then second in Big Ten in stats. So this Saturday they do play Purdue, heavy favorite in this game. I'm just going to throw out this here, and I know they have some offensive firepower over at Purdue, but when you look at that defense, it's going to be struggle. I mean, they're good. Okay, they're an average team. I give them that. You won your side of that conference. I told people, I said, I feel like the Big Ten championship game was won against Ohio State and Michigan. That was the Big Ten championship game. I think cannot wait till these conferences get rid of divisions and we just get the best two teams in the conference championship games like it should be. But I'll say that. I say all that to say this. Does Purdue have any chance at upsetting Michigan?
Yes, they do. A small chance, but they have a chance. Jeff Brom, Purdue's head coach, offensive mind. I believe he played quarterback at Louisville back in like the early 2000s. Forgive me if I got that wrong. But he is working on a plan right now to try to crack some holes in the Michigan defense. It's possible, highly unlikely. And also, I don't know the status of Blake Corum. I don't know if he's going to come back and play this weekend. Because I do think Ohio State, if they made just the slightest of adjustments, they could have overcome and even had a chance to win the game against Michigan when Ohio State did not play their best brand of football this past weekend. If you take the 70-plus yard touchdown run and the 80-plus yard touchdown run that Donovan Edwards had in the second half, maybe fourth quarter, that game is not what you see in the final score. So I think what would that be? 14 points that come away 31-23. That's a whole lot different outlook than if you just take those long runs away. Mm-hmm. So I do think there's a chance because ultimately, without Blake Corum, this offense will not be what it was on Saturday because Ohio State just had some issues and Michigan took advantage of them. But yeah, there's a chance. Trick play here, kick return there, long punt return in the third quarter. There is a chance. And let me tell you, I am here for some Michigan fans to leave Lucas Oil Stadium mad and in their feelings because I will be sitting there smiling. Am I a Purdue fan? No, but I'm happy to be at a game when the Wolverines get upset by the Purdue Boilermakers. I'm here for it. But hey, we got to wait and see, but it's possible. It is possible.
Hey, look, this is the same Michigan team just a week before had a last-minute field goal to beat Illinois. I mean, and no disrespect, Illinois. Brett Bielema, I think, is doing a really good job up at Illinois with what he's doing. Former Arkansas head coach down here, just throw it out there to remind the SEC audience of Brett Bielema. But now let's transition into the newest college football playoff rankings, and then this is where we're getting to some more comparing some teams and a little SEC discussion. Of course, Georgia's number 1, Michigan's number 2. I mean, pretty much what we expect at the top 4. TCU coming at 3, USC at number 4, Ohio State's 5, Alabama 6, and Tennessee 7. I'm just going to 7. That's as far as I'm going to go with the new rankings. Everybody knows where you can go find them online if you want to see all 25. And I look at that, and it's quite interesting, Jay, because I do think TCU, I will go ahead and say this. And I know I'll do my previews tomorrow with Matt Lowe. Georgia should beat LSU. I'll just say that. Michigan should beat Purdue. So I'm not even talking about this, but TCU and USC, they are very, very susceptible to losing this weekend. Kansas State can beat them. And we know, look, most TCU games are an instant heart attack for every TCU fan, anyways, at the end of the game. USC could not stop air. I mean, that defense is bad, and Utah beat them. There's an opportunity for both Ohio State and Alabama to get back in this thing. What were your thoughts? I know you did it earlier on Tuesday with Locked On, but just what are your thoughts on how the rankings look right now?
So, Phillip, it wasn't just the live show we did with Locked On reacting to the rankings. I actually predicted the top 6 on Locked On Buckeyes show on Tuesday as well. So people that were listening and viewing Locked On Buckeyes, they got that prior to the live show where I reiterated this was what I predicted. This is a weird spot because you mentioned TCU and USC having the chance to both lose this weekend. A few weeks ago, even with the thought of a loss for Ohio State against Michigan, if that was a thought, I don't think anybody would have said a rematch in the playoff was going to happen this year, and I don't think anybody would have said Alabama, Georgia in the playoff in Atlanta, Georgia was going to happen either. But that's what we're looking at right now. We're literally looking at a scenario where it's Alabama, Georgia in the Peach Bowl in Atlanta. We're looking at a scenario where it's Michigan, Ohio State, a rematch in the playoff over there in Arizona in the Fiesta Bowl for a chance to go to the national championship over in SoFi Stadium in LA. That's the reality of the situation right now. I think the hot hand TCU, I don't know if their ride is over, but Phillip, that USC team, they could be playing uptight. And you know how Lincoln Riley, how he might be. He won Big 12 championships. Didn't get outside. I think he got to the playoff, and I know he had a big game against Georgia in the Rose Bowl a few years ago. But does Lincoln Riley get uptight with his coaching? Is he a little uneasy? Does Utah play with house money, play loose, play free? They won the first game. They can do it again. How does that look? Ultimately, that USC-Utah game on Friday night is what I think a lot of eyeballs should be fixated on. I understand high school basketball in your area. You guys still might be playing high school football late in your state tournaments.
State championship week.
I get all of that. Also, find a way on your phone. There's a lot of ways to watch the games on your phone nowadays. Find a way to tap into the USC-Utah game on Friday night, because I think that's going to be a great sign of what's to come during championship weekend on Saturday.
Yeah, I'm with you. For me, this is a big championship week. Just with the Alabama. Okay, this is dropping on Wednesday. The state championship games. The first one is on Wednesday night, and we've got all day Thursday, Friday. Then I've got championship games on Saturday. So this full in. I know for college football fans, championship week. For yours truly, for your host Phillip Jordan, this is all things championship. But you're right. And then look, USC does look like that team that could get tight. I mean, because what are they going to do? I mean, will Utah be in hit? You know what's interesting with Utah? They messed up Oregon last year. They beat Oregon twice and messed their season up. Are they going to do this 2 years in a row where they're going to mess another team's season up and beat them twice? They beat Oregon in the regular season, beat them in the championship game. They beat USC in the regular season. Will they beat them? And I'll say this. I'm disappointed in Utah. Their defense this year has not been what I thought it would be. It's not what you're used to seeing. I will go ahead and say I predicted that the Utah was going to be a playoff team going into the year. So I will feel a little bit better about Utah. They pull this one out, but they have a chance to really be ultimate spoilers once again.
They do. And I'm here for it. I am here for chaos this weekend. Phillip, I have not looked and actually written down how many consecutive weeks you've had multiple teams in the top 5 lose in college football. But this past weekend, I don't have my notes on me. They might be on another notebook. Not going to get it. I can't. It's right here as I'm trying to do a little verbal tap dancing. There were 4 teams in the top 9 that lost this past weekend. Wasn't the first time you've seen multiple in the top 10, but there's been a track record this season of multiple teams losing in the top 10 week after week after week. This week, number 2 Ohio, last week's rankings, number 2 Ohio State, number 5 LSU, number 8 Clemson, number 9 Oregon, all lost. I do see a scenario that Clemson honestly could lose again. It'd be so comical. Clemson could lose again, but then you're looking at who in the top 5 loses. My first guess is USC, TCU. USC loses first and then TCU, not just in days. That's honestly who I think has the biggest chance of losing. My gut tells me that the upsets, they're not over yet. And this could be a weekend where we see multiple teams in the top 10 lose once again. Most teams in the top 10 are not playing. Granted, you're playing number 3 versus number 10, so one of them is going to lose and fall out. That's expected, similar to number 2 versus number 3 last week between Michigan and Ohio State. But I do see a scenario where you can get multiple teams in the top 10 losing again. USC, I got them on upset alert. And honestly, I think K-State is probably going to be on the outside in this conversation of a team losing this weekend. But football's fun, man. I went through all that. I love this game, and I expect chaos this weekend.
So, 2 teams that are hoping for some chaos: Ohio State and Alabama. Now, I've had so many people in the last couple of days since Saturday, since Alabama won the Iron Bowl 49-27. Can Alabama get back into the college football playoff? That seems like a very far-fetched idea. So I've been asked what needs to happen. And I tell people the safest way is TCU and USC lose, Ohio State and Alabama get in. Now, obviously, we know the rankings. They put Ohio State at 5, Alabama 6. But I told people, I said, I wouldn't be shocked they put Alabama ahead of them just because they've already done it. They did it last week when they put a 2-loss LSU ahead of a 1-loss USC. Not the same thing with teams, but just they've shown they're capable of doing that. So I wonder, and it's going to be interesting. We know where they're ranked now, but we all know the last ranking is the one that matters. And we've seen them have teams jump others that didn't play before. That's another thing with the committee. They've done some out there weird things in the past. Me and Jay are about to do a few minutes of just comparing the two. Now, the Alabama fan said, what's the Auburn fan doing defending Alabama? Just kind of how it's going to go this on here, so just get over it. Row Tide. Anyways, you look at Alabama, and I'm just going to say, I'm not going to say they should get in Ohio State, but I can say here's their argument why they should be the 4 team if it came down to one of those two. If only USC or TCU lost and we got to pick between the two. Now, I know Alabama's got 2 losses. Ohio State's got the 1. But when I look at Alabama, the 2 losses are combined 4 points to a Tennessee team at the end of the game, field goal, and LSU at the game, 2-point conversion. And I'll just say from the Ohio State, if you wanted to say why Alabama could go over Ohio State, in my opinion, the last impression means a lot. What you did last means a lot. And the last time you saw Ohio State play football, it wasn't pretty. So that would be my argument to put. Okay, well, let's go ahead. This show's called Talking SEC, and Alabama's from the SEC. Let's just go and throw it out there because everybody expects me to say that anyways. Let's just stay on brand. But tell me, Jay, why would Ohio State deserve to be over Alabama if that scenario came up?
Let's keep it simple. I like simple things. I'm a simple guy. So let's keep it simple, Phillip. One team has 2 losses. Another team has 1.
Mm-hmm.
They both play 12 games. Neither one of them have a shot to play a 13th right now this weekend because they're not playing in the conference championship game. One team has 2 losses. Another team has 1. Let's just keep it there and keep it simple for everybody listening. In what world do we play our respective schedules? I understand. You might say, well, the SEC's better. Well, the Ohio State didn't lose to a team that has 3 losses. Now, currently 3 losses.
Yeah, LSU.
Alabama did. Ohio State lost to a team, the number 2 team in the country, playing for the conference championship. As much as you want to say that when you lose holds weight, which I agree with you, with time in the year you lose, that means something. You also got to factor in who you lose to. Now, the LSU one is one thing. That's just one team. that they lost to. If we just go that, if that was the only loss, take that alone by itself. Ohio State, even though they got beat, and honestly, the final score does not show how the game was. I mean, if it was closer in the, I think it was 24-20 at the end of at halftime, and you would think, oh, adjustments, Ohio State could overcome a 4-point deficit. That did not happen. I think who you lose to and when you lose does matter. And I say that knowing that when Ohio State won their last national championship, they lost to Virginia Tech in week 2 of that season. If that came the final week prior to conference championship week, that loss looks a whole lot worse than it does during week 2. Alabama has the luxury of having their losses not be recent, but they're still losses. The win-loss record alone, look at stats. I think a lot of them favor Ohio State. Haven't looked at them recently. Strength of schedule, strength of record. That's take that for what it's worth. But I really do think, though, the records and who you lose to, the records of the teams you lose to, all that stuff matters, which is why the committee's been high on Ohio State all year, and they're still high on Ohio State right now. Alabama needs more chaos than Ohio State to make the playoff, but it's not crazy to say 2 teams in the top 4 lose this weekend, and both Bama and Ohio State are in the playoff. And I honestly think, Phillip, the playoff needs that. The playoff needs these 2 schools in there simply for brand recognition and to get more eyeballs and money. I am not a fan of playing these playoff games on New Year's Eve. Never have been, never will be. It's weird that this year, I believe New Year's Eve is on a Saturday, so I guess it's a little bit better than playing it on a Friday or a Thursday, whatever the case may be. But people are going to be out. What's the best chance for you to get all eyeballs that are out at a bar or at a party to focus on football? To have Alabama and Georgia and then Ohio State, Michigan in the playoff. Now, granted, the committee cannot dictate that, who's in the Final Four, but if there's chaos this weekend, that's the reality of the situation. Those could be the matchups this weekend. And on New Year's Eve, having that, my goodness, everybody's going to be watching. 17 million just watched Ohio State, Michigan Thanksgiving weekend. Could it be 17.5 or 18 million or 19 million on New Year's Eve? It's possible. It's really possible. I think the committee wants that to keep this train rolling and make all the money they can.
So, Jay, are you familiar with professional wrestling?
No, not at all.
So, do you know the term of a heel turn?
I could heel turn. You turn the heel. That's the best I can give you.
Where the good guy quickly turns on the audience and goes bad.
Oh.
That's what I'm about to do to Alabama, because I'm about to throw something else at them. You notice I mentioned who was number 7, right? Why is Alabama ranked ahead of Tennessee? Because Tennessee's got the same record. They've got 2 losses too. I know why. It's Alabama for one. And look, all things considered here, Alabama's losses are by 4 points. Tennessee got beat by 2 touchdowns by Georgia. And then they got blown out by South Carolina, and they lost their quarterback, Hendon Hooker. But still, if I'm a Tennessee fan right now, I'm saying, whoa, why is this an Alabama versus Ohio State argument? Why isn't Tennessee in there?
I agree with you.
Tennessee's got a better resume with their wins, in my opinion, than what Alabama has. Right now, the only team that Alabama has beat that is currently in the top 25 of the college football playoff is number 24, Mississippi State. Before that, their best win was against Ole Miss. And at the time, Arkansas was 20. Arkansas was a 6-6 football team. Tennessee's got a better resume. So I'm just saying, Alabama fans, y'all are getting a little bit of benefit of doubt because you are Alabama. But if I'm that number 17 Tennessee, I'm thinking right now, we beat Alabama. Why aren't we number 6? Why aren't we the one being compared to Ohio State if it came to a 2-loss SEC team versus a 1-loss Big Ten team?
You mentioned Tennessee. I think one thing that's helping Ohio State right now is Penn State being number 8.
That too. That's
because you're splitting hairs between 10-2 Penn State, 10-2 Clemson, 10-2 Tennessee, 10-2 Alabama. I'm not saying Penn State's better than Alabama. I'm not saying that. I don't believe they're better than Tennessee, but that ultimately boosts Ohio State up in the rankings. And you said it so well. I think Tennessee could fall. I think if Hendon Hooker's healthy, they might put Tennessee above Alabama. Just it's a thought out there.
Mhm.
When your starting quarterback is out, the human element factor comes in, which is why I think the committee has Tennessee 7, Alabama 6. Now, I think if those two teams played and Hendon Hooker was healthy, then Tennessee beat him earlier, right?
Yeah. Talking about beat Alabama. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think if those two teams played again this weekend and Hendon Hooker was healthy, I think Alabama loses again. It might be worse. So it's weird, man. It's a weird world we live in. I am not a. Some people say this is a great year to view and look at expansion, saying this year should be an expansion. Help me understand something. Alabama's got issues. Tennessee has issues. Why in the world do you think they should be in the conversation with Georgia or even Michigan or TCU to be in the playoffs, to have a shot to win the national championship? Now, granted, you might say, Jay, the 4 is too exclusive. That's what we love about college football. You got to run the table or be one of the best of the best of the best to have a shot to win the natty. This is not a great year. It's not a great snapshot because we're playing with fire here, Phillip. We're going to have a 3-loss team win the national championship one year, and there will be an uproar. I recently looked, and I don't know how I got on expansion talk, and I was like, didn't we have a 2-loss team win the national championship? BCS national championship, LSU beat Ohio State. I forget who LSU played the week before or previously in the SEC championship to get to there, but I was like, 2 losses just seems weird now. LSU was better than Ohio State on that day. I just forget all that season. We're playing with fire. We're going to have a 3-loss team win the national championship? Unheard of. But that's going to happen here soon, and I am not a fan of it.
So, me and you going to do something in the offseason because I'm for the expansion of the college football playoff, but we're going to table that because we've already hit 32 minutes. So, that'll be a good conversation.
My apologies. I talk a lot.
You're good. You're good. You're good. Hey, it's a podcast. People don't have time to listen to it in one sitting. They hit pause and come back later. That's a great thing about this. And that LSU team, 2007, Les Miles coach team, he always had the one saying about that team. They were undefeated in regulation that year because both losses came in overtime.
Triple overtime, both of them.
Yeah. So they played and they got lucky against Auburn. I'm just going to leave that there. No, we're going to carry on to it the next thing. Now, I was always going to do this and really rapid picks. Now, I'm not going to pick these games because I'm going to do that with Matt Lowe on the next episode of the show. So, real quickly, Jay, I'm going to throw these games out. I mean, just give me your picks real quickly on these. A Pac-12 championship game. We've already talked about it. Number 11, Utah versus number 4, USC. USC is a 3-point favorite.
Utah.
I like it. Big 12, number 10, Kansas State, 9-3 at number 3, TCU, or versus number 3, TCU, 12-0. TCU is a 2.5-point favorite.
I got the Horned Frogs of TCU.
Probably give everybody a heart attack at the end, but I like to pick. The SEC championship game, number 14 LSU, 9-3 will be playing number 1 Georgia, 12-0. This is in Atlanta for everybody wants to know. So Georgia will be the unofficial home team here in this one, but Georgia is a 17.5-point favorite.
I think Georgia wins by 3 touchdowns.
I do too. That game really took a different look after the A&M loss. So the American Athletic Conference, the Fighting Gus Malzahn's, the UCF, number 22, 9-3. They will be playing Tulane. Well, yeah, they'll be at Tulane, number 18. They are 10-2. Tulane is a 3.5-point favorite.
Call me crazy. I'm riding with the green wave. Tulane's going to win this one. I love Gus Malzahn. I don't think UCF wins this game.
And then finally, the meaningless ACC championship game. Not really. One of these teams will win a championship. I don't like that meaningless. I mean, it doesn't mean anything for the national championship picture, but still. Number 9, Clemson at 10-2 versus number 23, North Carolina, 9-3. Clemson is a 7.5-point favorite.
Not a good look for Dabo. Back-to-back losses. North Carolina wins the ACC.
Okay, I put on my Twitter a few weeks ago I thought this was going to happen, but it's before these two decided to start losing games left and right. So, especially when North Carolina lost to Georgia Tech after being up 17-0 2 weeks ago. But anyways, that's some rapid picks. Like I said, if you guys want to my full picks with me and Matt Lowe, we'll do that on tomorrow's pod. Jay, this has been a lot of fun having you on the show. I'm sure we have not upset anybody in SEC country with our conversation here at all. But I always appreciate you jumping on the show, any show I do. Where can people find you? Where can they find Locked On Buckeyes? And where can they find the Jay Stevens podcast?
You can follow me on Twitter at jsteven07. Phillip, I want to say thank you for having me on the show. It's always fun. We can chop it up and talk ball. You can also send your emails if you want to email me. You want to have a little longer conversation about something I said. Follow me or send your email to jstevens317 at gmail.com. Check out Locked On Buckeyes every Monday through Friday. It's on YouTube and on your favorite podcast listening app of your choosing. Tonight, on the basketball court, Ohio State goes to Duke. Last year, Ohio State upset Duke. Duke is number one in the country. Tonight, Chris Holtmann leads his Buckeyes into the Cameron Indoor Stadium. Can it be back-to-back upsets for Ohio State over Duke on the basketball court? I'll be talking about that and reacting to tonight's game. That's at 7:15 p.m. Eastern Time. I believe that's on the worldwide leader, ESPN. Phillip, it's fun, man. I love this stuff, and I want chaos this weekend in college football.
I have a feeling we're going to get it. Something crazy is going to happen. But anyways, it should be fun. And I appreciate, Jay, you coming on the show once again. I hope we can do this again sometime down the road.
Yeah, absolutely.